Brand new film No Address puts a spotlight on the issue of homelessness through compelling storytelling and powerful acting. And joining me now from the film is Mr. Billy Baldwin. I'm elated to be speaking with you, Billy. How are things?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, Billy, why don't you just kind of give me the background on what No Address is and kind of some of the stories that will be shared within the film?
No Address is a very inspirational, motivational, uplifting call to action. It very accurately portrays the different paths that can lead to homelessness. My character is very interesting, but one of the characters has a mental health crisis. One of them goes into bankruptcy. One of them has an addiction problem. One of them is a PTSD vet. One of them is a victim of domestic violence. One of them ages out of foster care. We look at all of those excuses. Do you say, is it a child's fault to be homeless? Is it a victim of domestic violence fault? No. Is it someone who is suffering from a mental health crisis? No. And there are those that would say, well, what about the ones that are doing drugs? And what you don't understand is that 90% of the people that are doing drugs are self-medicating because they don't have access to health care to be treated for anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. So they're self-medicating on the street with alcohol and with fentanyl, and that's changed the game. I mean, the COVID pandemic and fentanyl have absolutely changed the game, and it's now reaching into communities in ways they're having a significant negative impact that it wasn't, 10 years ago.
Yeah, you mentioned call to action, and that's exactly how I would describe this film. So what do you kind of hope the impact is then for the audience?
I'd like to reframe it from a homeless crisis to a mental health crisis. I would love people to be more compassionate and more sympathetic. I would love them to see homeless people on the street and look them in the eye and ask them how they're doing and say have a nice day and say have a great weekend and say I hope you're enjoying the beautiful sunshine, whatever. Just make eye contact. All I hear repeatedly in shelters and in encampments is that they want to be seen and they want to be heard. They feel forgotten. They've lost their dignity, and it just goes a long way in terms of restoring their dignity if you treat them like human beings and not like they're pariahs or they're lepers or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Humanizing them, I think, is the first step for a lot of people that, is a big barrier, if you will. Now, Billy, what would you say, or in what ways would you say that this film kind of challenges those common perceptions of both homelessness and kind of that mental health crisis that you're speaking on here?
Well, it challenges it because a lot of people have become desensitized. A lot of people feel like if you're homeless, it's your fault. I'll ask you simple yes or no. If 1.6 million children are homeless, is it their fault?
No.
If they're a victim of domestic violence, is it their fault?
No.
If they're a PTSD veteran, is it their fault?
No.
I've said before, if they're doing drugs, if they're a victim of domestic violence, if they've aged out of foster care, clearly it's not their fault. We live in the most powerful, most affluent country in human history. We have the resources. Do we have the will? People are becoming way too desensitized. It's almost like, it's a weird analogy, but it's almost like school shootings. I remember Columbine and Paducah and Jonesboro, and everybody was shocked. It was like the earth stopped spinning on its axis, and then it started happening again and again and again and more frequently. And by the time we got to Sandy Hook and beyond, people haven't been willing to accept it. They've just become overwhelmed and desensitized, and they get motivated and inspired, and they want to answer the call to action, but their life gets in the way. They got to pay bills. They got to raise their kids. They're not feeling well. They got to cook dinner. So we're hoping that we can get people to engage with nonprofits in their community, with the faith organizations, their church, their synagogue, their temple. We're hoping that they'll if they can't volunteer, that they might write a check. If they can't write a check, go see this movie, noaddress.com. Opens nationwide this Friday, February 28th. Half the proceeds from the movie go to funding nonprofits that are helping homeless people.
Yeah, Billy, also, something that stands out to me is the tagline of the film is to break the no address cycle. What does that phrase mean to you? What do you hope that resonates with for people in that way?
A lot of the things we've been talking about. It's basically frame it as mental health, realize that it's not their fault, become less desensitized, become more compassionate, and then answer the call to action and engage. And there's many programs. I don't mean this. I don't want this to have the reverse effect. There are many programs that are doing great work right now across the country. Nowhere near enough. This problem has gotten much worse because of COVID, because of fentanyl. But some of these programs are having a 70 to 80% success rate, getting people health care, drug treatment, job training, job placement, housing, affordable housing. That's another big problem. My character has a wife, a son, a job, a paycheck. All of a sudden that's taken away, and everybody is one major health crisis away from, or a bankruptcy filing away from, living at a friend's couch, living in their basement, living in your car in an alleyway. Homelessness can happen to anybody. We have the resources. Do we have the will to band together? If we put our mind to it, we could eradicate homelessness in this country. We've been hearing this for 4 decades now. We can end it in the next decade. We've been hearing that for 4 or 5 decades. It's not because we don't have the resources. It's because we don't have the political will, with the left and the right working together to answer the call.
Yeah. Billy, so many powerful words shared this morning on this incredible film, No Address. So once again, people want more information. They want to get more screening info, want to find out more about what this film is, what it's doing. How do they get that information?
Go to noaddressmovie.com, buy a ticket for you and your friend, tell all your friends, spread the word, and engage locally in your community. It really would make a difference. Even if you're volunteering at a shelter, not just on Thanksgiving, one day a month, volunteering at a shelter, sit down with these people, look them in the eye, make them feel heard and seen. And if you don't have the bandwidth to do that, you don't have the transportation, you don't have the child care, you could write a check. Every dollar helps. $5, $10, $20 makes a huge difference. Buying a ticket to this movie will fund, nonprofit organizations that service the homeless all across the country.
I love it. Every dollar helps, and buying a ticket to this movie is a great first step. Billy, thank you so much for your time this morning. No Address coming to a screen near you very soon. Thank you.